So let's talk about the year 1500. A Portuguese nobleman, a guy named Pedro Álvares Cabral, set sail for India. But his journey, well, it's going to completely change the map of the world and tie his name forever to the discovery of Brazil.
But here's the mystery that has kept historians arguing for centuries. He's the guy who gets all the credit for discovering Brazil, right? But was it just a lucky break, or was he actually following secret orders the whole time?
To really get the story, you first have to get the man. So, who exactly was Pedro Álvares Cabral?
First thing you need to know, Cabral was not your average sailor. Not even close. He was born into the highest ranks of Portuguese nobility. I mean, his family had been serving the king for 200 years. He was educated at the royal court, studying military strategy and, this is super important, cosmography, which is basically the science of mapping the stars in the world. On top of all that, he was a knight in the powerful Order of Christ and a trusted friend of King Manuel I. He was the definition of a well-connected insider.
You know, someone who knew him back then described him as cultured and courteous, but also vain and very concerned with the respect that his nobility required. So that gives you a pretty clear picture, right? This wasn't just some guy in a boat. He was a proud aristocrat, a man who expected and commanded respect.
And that right there is the key to this whole thing. King Manuel didn't pick Cabral because he was the most experienced mariner. Heck, legendary sailors like Bartolomeu Diaz were on the same expedition, but under his command. No, Cabral was chosen because he was the perfect nobleman. He was a diplomat whose high status could impress foreign rulers and give him the authority to lead a massive and dangerous mission.
And that brings us to the voyage itself, a journey that would become the stuff of legend, defined by incredible discoveries and just devastating tragedies.
And let me tell you, this was not some small expedition. We're talking about a massive fleet, 13 ships and 1,500 men. This was a huge investment by the Portuguese crown, and it was all designed for one thing: to completely take over the global spice trade.
The official mission was crystal clear. Follow the route that Vasco da Gama had pioneered to India, set up a permanent trading post in a city called Calicut, and do it using either diplomacy or, if necessary, brute force. The destination was India, but their first stop was a place that wasn't on any of their maps.
This voyage was just a complete roller coaster of highs and lows. It starts off really well, peacefully in April 1500, with the first European contact with the native peoples of Brazil. But just 1 month later, total disaster. A massive storm hits the fleet, sinks 4 ships, and kills the legendary explorer Bartolomeu Diaz. And when the battered, diminished fleet finally limps its way to India, believe it or not, things actually get worse.
So after arriving in India, everything goes wrong in Calicut. The trading post they set up gets attacked by rival merchants. Over 50 of his men are killed, including the expedition's famous scribe, Pedro Álvares Cabral. Cabral's response? He bombards the entire city. But this is where his diplomatic noble side kicks in. He sails south to a rival city, Cochin, and in a flash, he forges a new alliance, secures the valuable spice cargo, and establishes Portugal's very first permanent base in India. Mission accomplished.
Which, of course, brings us right back to that central question. That unexpected detour to South America, was it really an accident? So let's really look at the evidence. Was this just a simple case of getting blown off course, or was it a calculated move based on intelligence nobody else knew about?
Okay, let's break it down. The case for an accident is actually pretty strong. We have letters from the crew that express genuine surprise, and we know there were terrible storms that could have easily blown them way off course. But the evidence for a secret plan is really compelling. For one, they sailed suspiciously far to the west, way farther than they needed to. There are also rumors of secret voyages to the area before this one. And maybe the biggest smoking gun? 6 years earlier, Portugal had negotiated a treaty with Spain to move the official line dividing the globe, moving it westward just enough to give them a legal claim to the exact piece of land they accidentally just found. Coincidence? Maybe.
So after all of this, after this monumental voyage, you'd think Cabral would be set for life, a national hero forever, right? Well,
His story was about to take another very unexpected turn. He comes back to Portugal having totally succeeded. He secured the all-important spice route and claimed a vast new territory for his king. And at first, he was celebrated as a massive hero. But that fame, it vanished almost overnight. His fall from grace was incredibly fast. He was appointed to lead the very next fleet, but he got into a huge argument with the king about the chain of command. Basically, Cabral felt his authority as a nobleman was being undermined. The king saw it as a challenge to his own power, and boom, he replaced Cabral with his rival, Vasco da Gama. Totally humiliated, Cabral just retired from public life. He died around 1520, pretty much a forgotten man.
And I'm not just talking about being unpopular for a little while. For the next 3 centuries, Pedro Álvares Cabral was basically a footnote in the history books, completely overshadowed by guys like Vasco da Gama.
For 300 years, he was nobody. Then, in the 1800s, something huge changed. The Empire of Brazil became independent, and they needed a founding father figure for their new nation. So they rediscovered Cabral and resurrected his story. His fame just skyrocketed. And today, in our time, that legacy is being looked at again, through the much more critical lens of colonialism.
So, with a life story that is so full of twists and turns and contradictions, how are we supposed to remember this guy?
He really was a man of contradictions, wasn't he? He was a skilled diplomat who could forge alliances, but he could also be a ruthless military commander who leveled a city. He was the celebrated discoverer of an entire continent who was then cast aside by his own king and died in obscurity. And today, he is simultaneously praised as a national founder and criticized as a symbol of colonialism.
So what do you think? In the end, was he just a pawn carrying out his king's secret orders? Was he a brilliant and adaptable leader who navigated both treacherous oceans and treacherous politics? Or was he ultimately just a man whose entire legacy was shaped by one single, momentous turn of the wheel, whether that turn was by luck, by storm, or by secret design? The debate is still very much alive.